In the world of tech, even the biggest giants can stumble. And today, we're talking about one of the biggest stumbles of all, Intel's near-death experience in 2025. This isn't just a story about profits and losses. No. This is a high-stakes poker game for the soul of a company and maybe even the future of semiconductors.
Oof. Let's just start with this quote. I mean, talk about a gut punch. When the founder of your number one rival, TSMC, says this, it's brutal. And it tells you everything you need to know. By 2025, Intel's problem wasn't just a few delayed chips. It was a complete crisis of identity and trust. Nobody believed they knew what they were doing anymore.
And that crisis? It had a price tag, a jaw-dropping $18.8 billion, in the red. That's not a dip, my friends. That is a full-blown financial nosedive. This shows a company just hemorrhaging cash, building these massive, expensive factories with nothing to show for it yet. The alarm bells weren't just ringing, they were screaming.
So let's be crystal clear here. This wasn't just a bad year. What Intel was facing in early 2025 was a perfect storm. Their technology had fallen behind, their customers were leaving, and their market share was just evaporating. This was it, a true do-or-die moment for one of the most iconic names in tech.
Okay, so what do you do when you're staring into the abyss? You don't just make a few small changes. No, Intel slammed the emergency reset button. They launched one of the most radical, painful, and necessary corporate overhauls we've seen in a long, long time. This was about tearing the old Intel down to its studs to build something new. And the new CEO, Lip Bhutan, moved with lightning speed. Just look at this timeline. In a matter of months, he completely reshaped the company. A new CEO with a new vision, a massive reorganization to break down the walls inside the company. Then, the really tough part, huge layoffs to stop the financial bleeding. And finally, all new leaders for the most important divisions. The message was loud and clear. Business as usual was over.
And behind all these big strategic moves, there's a number, a really tough one. 35,500. That's how many jobs were cut in under 2 years. It's just a stark, sobering reminder of how deep this crisis really was. This wasn't just about trimming the fat. This was a desperate fight for survival.
So, with the company stabilized financially and structurally, it was time for phase 2. And this is where it gets interesting. Intel decided to bet everything, and I mean everything, on a single, incredibly ambitious piece of technology. A technology that could either be its salvation or the final nail in the coffin. It all came down to something called Intel 18A. So what is this 18A thing really? Well, you can think of it as Intel's moonshot. This isn't just a small step forward. It's packed with 2 brand new, game-changing innovations. You've got ribbon-fetch transistors for way better performance, and this wild new idea called PowerVia, which delivers power from the back of the chip. The goal here wasn't just to catch up to the competition. It was to leapfrog them. And to prove this wasn't just smoke and mirrors, Intel published this super aggressive roadmap. Now, this is so important, right? This was Intel basically saying to the entire industry, we are back, hold us accountable, we will deliver. They promised not just 18A, but a whole series of new technologies coming right after it. This was all about rebuilding trust by showing they could innovate again, and on a predictable schedule. And then it happened. The first huge domino fell. In May, the news broke. Microsoft, yes, that Microsoft, was signing on as a major customer for 18A. You have to understand, for a titan like Microsoft to bet its own products on your unproven tech, that's not just a sales win, it's a massive stamp of approval that the rest of the industry could not possibly ignore. And just like that, after Microsoft jumped in, it felt like the floodgates just opened. All of a sudden, you had other heavyweights like NVIDIA, Google, and Broadcom, all lining up, testing out 18A. The whole story started to change. Intel wasn't the washed-up legacy player anymore. Suddenly, they were a real contender again, with tech that the biggest names in the business actually wanted. But here's the thing. You can't pull off a comeback this massive with just cool tech. It takes an incredible amount of money, and, well, it takes friends in high places. The next chapter in Intel's 2025 story was all about securing the cash and the strategic partners they needed to actually fund this crazy dream. And boy, did the support roll in. First, the U.S. government stepped up big time, converting almost $9 billion from the CHIPS Act into a direct ownership stake in the company. Then another $2 billion came in from a major strategic investor, SoftBank. All of a sudden, Intel had the war chest it needed to go head-to-head with anyone. So with all this new money and new momentum, the entire industry started asking a question that, frankly, would have sounded completely insane just a year earlier. Could the bitterest of enemies actually become partners? Then the rumors started. The kind of rumors that make the whole industry stop and just listen. Whispers of talks between the CEOs of Intel and its arch nemesis TSMC. Now, nothing was ever confirmed, but the mere idea of a partnership or an investment, wow. It signaled that global politics were getting so intense that they could force even the fiercest rivals to work together, potentially changing the entire semiconductor landscape forever.
So 2025 was an absolutely wild ride for Intel, right? A new CEO, a new strategy, new tech, new customers, new money, an incredible amount of progress. But don't pop the champagne just yet. The fight is so far from over. As Intel looks ahead to 2026, the mountain they have to climb is still incredibly steep.
So let's just lay it all out. A kind of scorecard for the comeback so far. The progress in 2025, absolutely real, absolutely impressive. But the challenges for 2026 are just as real. Intel is still burning through cash. Their rival TSMC is not just sitting around. And absolutely everything from here on out comes down to one simple word: execution. And this right here, this brings us to the single biggest hurdle they face. It's something called manufacturing yield. See, it's one thing to have a great chip design. It's another thing entirely to be able to make millions and millions of them perfectly and profitably. And the projections are that 18A won't be truly profitable, won't reach those industry standard yields until 2027. That is the battle that Intel has to fight and win in 2026. Which leaves us here with this final thought. Intel survived 2025. They pulled themselves back from the absolute brink. They made all the right moves. But turning survival into a true victory, that's a whole different ballgame. The year 2026 is going to be the ultimate test, and the entire world is watching to see if this incredible comeback gambit actually pays off.